Have foreign powers created this, such as the Cold War, China, North Korea, Iran?
Civil wars generate insecurity that just emanates out from. It wasn't Russia that invented the idea of multiculturalism and made British governments adopt it.
The West and the UK, we have enemies. We've always had enemies. It's part of human nature. Is there an external influence on what's going on in the UK in this degrading of our social trust? Have foreign powers created this, such as the Cold War, China, North Korea, Iran, or are they taking advantage of it? Because I know for a fact we mess in other people's countries. They're bound to be messing in ours.
I think there is external influence, but it's not in the way that you suggest. So there is external influence because we live in an information society in which the ideas, the apprehensions, the concerns, the events which occur in very far distant places impact upon us now in a very regular, very rapid manner. So, for instance, the Black Lives Matter protests, which originate in the United States in an event occurring where in Detroit, I think. Where was the Floyd killing? Minnesota. Right. So you have an event occurring in Minnesota that's 2 months later is manifesting in Bristol with a riot that sees a statue thrown into the harbor. So clearly there is external influence on this, and many of the ideas that I'm talking about, these are not uniquely British ideas. These are ideas that are essentially floating around in our global kind of infosphere and impact upon British society. What I don't think there is evidence for is Russian or Chinese manipulation of obvious problems in British society. I hear this talked about, but I've certainly seen no sign of that. For my own part, if I attempt to look at the situation from the perspective of Russia or China, do I want this to occur in Britain, France, let alone the United States? Generally speaking, no. For the same reasons, we don't want to see civil war. We didn't want to see civil war occur in Russia in the middle of the 1990s when this seemed very plausible. We did not want to see that because it's perfectly obvious what the consequences are. Civil wars generate insecurity that just emanates out from, and so a big important place like Russia going into civil war would have had big effects on us. Likewise, Britain going into civil war. Britain is a nuclear power. We've got multiple nuclear power stations. We've got all kinds of infrastructure that, if left unguarded or neglected or whatever, could have big, powerful effect. So I don't see Russia and China being involved in the sense of precipitating this conflict. It wasn't Russia that invented the idea of multiculturalism and made British governments adopt it over a generation. It wasn't the Russian Ministry of Education that said, well, we're no longer going to teach British civics. These are all native ideas. We did that to ourselves. Okay. Now, which is not to say, however, that when this occurs and Britain does become a very significantly weakened entity because it is so tragically ill, which is one way I think you could metaphorically describe this situation, that foreign powers would not take an advantage. After all, in the 19th century, when China was in its period of civil wars, that was the beginning of China's century of humiliation, so-called, in which it was subject to a bunch of very uneven treaties and the like that it simply couldn't resist because it didn't have the organic strength to resist foreign. So I don't think it's occurred yet in the form that you suspect, but when it does happen, when we do break down openly, I think there will be very significant potential for foreign interference that could be very disagreeable.